What's up, on my Power Axe crew? The vast majority of you wanted to see me pull the rest of the parts out of this thing before I convert it to a camper. Let's get it. Today, transfer case. Let's pull that out of there. Let's get to work. So as you can see, we got the rear drive shaft already disconnected because this thing was brought here on a dolly that the front tires, go up on the car dolly. When it's like that, your front tires don't turn, but your rear tires do, which turns the drive shaft, which turns the transfer case. If you're flat towing it, that's one thing, because then you put the transfer case in neutral, you're okay. But if you got the front tires up on a dolly and the rear tires are going along for the ride, which is spinning the transfer case, not really a good thing. I mean, it does spin the pump inside the transfer case. I'm just not a big fan of it. I may be completely over protective of that, but I just didn't want to take the chance of messing with the transfer case. So it's only 4 bolts to take this out. It's easy. Hung the drive shaft up here by a couple zip ties, and it was along for the ride. So it was no big deal. It's not that hard. To get the drive shaft off of the front differential, you're gonna need a 5/16 socket right there, there, and there. Take them out. Now, once you get the bolts out, just kind of be careful. More times than not, it's gonna be hard to come out. But I have seen times where once you pull those bolts out right there, the drive shaft just will drop. So if you're in the wrong position, it could come down, pop you right in the nose or something. So be careful. Since this was stuck pretty good, I'm going to get me a big flat screwdriver, stick it up inside here, wedge this back to get the U-joint out of the yoke. Before I pull the U-joint completely out of the yoke, I just want to show you how I have the screwdriver. I'm just kind of wedged up inside there, push it toward, take the handle of the screwdriver, push it toward the front of the Jeep. It'll wedge that U-joint out of there. Pretty easy. So once you get the front part of the drive shaft dropped down, you're working on the rear, and you're not going to have a whole lot of room to get up here to the socket and stuff. So I usually get over a ratchet wrench, get up inside here, and take these out, 5/16. Because that transfer case being in neutral or not in four-wheel drive, should I say, this right here will free spin. So stick your screwdriver inside there to hold it in place while you break your bolts loose. Ta-da! When you go take the rear drive shaft out, you got this boot right here that slides over the slip joint. Just take that boot, push it back against toward the transfer case, and you'll see the slip right here. And then you can grab it. And come on down there, take it. Anyway, I got the camera on my way. So anyway, you just got to slide that sucker out of there. Now, unplugging your speed sensor, get you a pick or a small flat screwdriver, get it behind that red tab, pull it down, pull it out, see it popped out like that, and then you need to get right here and squeeze this. There's a tab right here, the tab right there, squeeze it, pull, ta-da! So up here I've got my jack set up on a 2x4 to spread the weight out on the pan. If you put your pad directly on the pan, what's subject to happen is it's forcing all that weight on these little tabs that the jack has. You may dent your pan, or sometimes I have seen people put too much pressure and actually cave the pan in. It's a bad thing. Get you a 2x4, 2x6, something like that that's short enough to span the pan. That'll support the weight once you take out the cross member. You don't need no jack it up on pressure. You just want to get it up there, touch it, and maybe a little bump, because the only thing you're doing is supporting the weight. You're not actually jacking the transmission up. So now we got bolts up in here, and we got bolts up in here. We got to get them out. So for the transmission mount, you got 1, 2, 3, and 4 13mm. Deep will get you up in there a little better. So here you go, 13mm here, there. So for right now, I'm leaving this in place, hold it by the way, that is a 15mm. This one was a 15mm, but I had the breaker bar on it to break it loose, and it broke, and I smacked my arm against the frame, and yeah, that hurt like a lot. And those 4 13mm up in here are now officially out, and I broke one of those off. But now I got some way down yonder I gotta get. And over here on this side of the cross member, 15 millimeter, 15 millimeter. Took them out. But right here is the one single nut that's holding this cross member up. There's a stud that comes out of the frame right there. So what I can do at this point, if I don't want to just take that nut off and watch it hit the ground, I can get right here and kind of hold it up a little bit. Yeah, underneath it, slow drop it on my head. Go ahead and back that nut on out. And just sit her down. Yay. Now here's that stud where I just took that nut off of. Right there is a bolt that goes into the frame. So you got a bolt that holds on this side and a stud and a nut that holds this side. That stud is there just to help you raise and lower and line everything up. It really helps a lot. But I twisted the bolt off into the frame right here, so I'm going to have to fix that somehow. I'm probably going to cut that out, put me a weld nut or something in there. Maybe, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get that point. Because my plan is, whenever I convert this thing to a camper and I put my trailer tongue, which is of course going to be at the front of the Jeep, this cross member, I think I'm going to have a center support coming down into it and to brace against this right here to help distribute the weight amongst the chassis. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to fix that later on, but that's not a thing for right now. Well, I've got that one popped off right there, and I got that one right there popped off. But just to demonstrate, I just got my screwdriver back in behind there, wedged out like right there, and it pops them off. And same as with this one right here. But I'm gonna go ahead and drop that down. Honestly, when I popped this right here, I should have had the camera rolling, because when it's finally popped off, screwdriver hit myself right in the neck. And it kind of smarted. Actually, I've had that twice happen already today. So now once you got the top one popped loose, you get your screwdriver, get in right there, and wedge back on it and pop it out of there. But I'm not going to do it in this position because I'm holding the camera with one hand while I'm showing you guys this. If this screwdriver slips, it's going to hit the camera. So you got the point. So now I'm starting to work on my transfer case bolts. Right here's one of them. I've already got it partially backed out. It's almost off. 14 millimeter. I had to get in here with a wrench, or if you got a ratchet wrench, is actually what I use, but you can do it with a regular wrench as well. This one up here is a pain in the tail. 14 millimeter deep well, because a regular socket, it hits the head of the stud. So 14 millimeter deep well, but it partially hits on the transmission case here too. So then I got a 6-inch extension, then a 3-inch extension, getting back here to a long arm. Well, I can say a long arm. It's longer than a typical ratchet. And you got to put some mojo to it to break it loose. But once you got it broke loose, you start backing it out. Then I got 3 on the other side. So 14 millimeter, have fun. Leaving that one in place for right now, because that was such a bear to get to. I went ahead and took that nut completely off. And now go to the other side of the transfer case and work on those. Now we're over here on the passenger side with the exhaust all up in the way, and but there's 2 more of the stud, nuts, whatever that's holding the transfer case. And below that bottom one, there's another one down below it. Let's see. Trying to figure out a way I can show you guys. Right there it is. So yeah, get those 3 out. Okay, since that exhaust is so much in the way, this is one of those times I believe I can take and lower the jack and give myself a little bit of room. What I'll do is just pull out the plasma cutter, cut the exhaust off since I'm not going to use it. But yeah, my goals for those transfer case bolts. So I'm going to drop my jack down a little bit, see how much room does it give me. I wasn't going to fool with it. I cut the crap out of there. It's in my way. And still, I should shorten it up, but yeah. So I got the double wrench thing going on, breaking that one loose. Now I gotta get down here for that one. Yeah, so I'm working them out, but you may need to find an option for you whenever you do the transfer case in your Cherokee. Probably up there on the header, drop the exhaust down so you can get to it a little easier. But I'm not gonna use the exhaust on this thing. It's all trash to me, so I just cut it. That one's out, that one's out. But this right here, the nut didn't come off. The whole stud came out, as you can see right there. And 14 fits. Those bolts or the nuts are pretty tight. So I went to a 9/16 on this one. Fits great. But because that was back in the hole, that 9/16 is actually a better fit for back inside that. So hopefully we'll get that one out here pretty quick, and once the transfer case be pretty close to coming out. Another trick I'm using here is that things are kind of hard to break loose, so I get the wrench up inside there, then I double stack those wrenches as the old mechanic trick does. Gives me that extra leverage to get it broke loose, and once I get it broke loose, they're not too bad coming out. Grabbed hold of the transfer case, gave it a shake, said, "Oh right, I think we should be about good now." They wouldn't move. I'm like, what the heck? Then it dawned on me, I forgot one that's way back up inside that hole right there. There it is. So now you got to take the transmission mount off, and that is a, make sure I tell you guys right size, 18 millimeter. Got a big old bolt right there and one over here on this side. Pull that transmission mount out and it should be right there, easy enough to get to. Just to give y'all a heads up, see a big long cheater pipe? That's what I had to do to break those transmission mounts loose. Fun. Got them out and it was a fight. Right there's one of the studs that are broke I showed you earlier. You can get these right here are like, you know, go to the auto parts store, replacement pieces right here. That not so much. You can pick them up at the junkyard if need be. But if you need to replace your transmission mount, you can pick it up at the auto parts store. I'm not going to be, because I'm not putting it back in. So there's one of the bolts right there that held the transmission mount in. You can see all that blue Loctite, and that stuff was holding very well. I had to use that pipe on that ratchet about the whole time. And as you can see right there is the last transfer case bolt. I've got it just backed off and hanging on there. I've got one up top at about 11 o'clock there. And I've got one over there. So I'm going to go ahead and take those nuts on off. And I still got a vent tube over there to unhook. Then we'll set the transfer case down. Sweet. Yes! I still got that nut in there. Now I tend to leave those on there like that until it's the last moment of getting ready to pull the transfer case out. It's more of a safety issue than anything else. Therefore, if something was to bump and something was to hit, whatever, some weird incident may happen, that transfer case don't come popping out and landing on me. So I'll leave those in there to hold everything in place. But I still got that vent tube I gotta get out there. So, a pair of pliers it is. Oh, and don't forget your little pigtail right here for that switch. I got that's off, vent tube's off, and that's just finger tight. I think I'm ready to bring this bad boy out of here. I took that small jack out underneath the transmission, and it's hanging by its motor mounts right now. It's not going to hurt it. I just want to leave it like that on a long-term basis if you want to keep your mounts. But got it under the transfer case, if nothing else, more for the sake of balance. And for those of you who want to talk smack, yes, I've done this without a jack many, many, many times. But for those people out there who, but I know lady mechanics who just aren't big enough or strong enough to pick up these transfer cases. And there's a lot of ladies on my channel. So there you go. There she goes. Take a little more weight up. Come on. It's almost there. We've got like almost a 5/8 gap going right now. Okay, most of the studs are out. It's still on the transmission output shaft. So much for that balance part. It's almost lost that. And There she goes. There's a place on the bottom of the transmission right here, and the bolt right there. Now I've got them both sitting on the jack. Much more stable. Let's see if I can lower this thing slowly. So I have much better balance now that I got 2 points right here holding it. Keep on turning the jack the wrong way. And roll her forward. Yeah, boys. And for the front, this is your input. Back in behind here is your planetaries. And this right here is your vent tube. And what that does, any kind of, when it gets warm or hot inside there and all the seals and everything, you don't want pressure built up inside the case. So this right here allows the case to vent pressure in and out without getting water or any other kind of junk inside of it. So whenever you do any of your PMs and stuff like that on your Jeeps, I don't care if it's a Wrangler, if it's a Cherokee, whatever it is, even Chevrolets, Fords, and stuff like that, check that vent hose right there always. Because oftentimes, after a while, they'll get cracks, dry rot cracks and stuff. And if it does, and you're out wheeling, you get into some water, and the cracks start allowing water to come into it. You get water inside your transfer case, or your front diff, your rear diff, and even your manual transmissions and stuff, or automatics even have them. So, if you've got a hose coming off your front diff, rear diff, transfer case, transmission, whatever, be sure to maintain those hoses very well, because they'll prevent you a lot of headaches from later. Hold up just a second, I'm going to interrupt this video. If you guys want to take these XJ parts and convert them for a YJ, except for the transfer case, the output shaft on the transfer case is different between the YJs and the XJs. But if you take a YJ transfer case, put it on the back of this XJ transmission, that can be done. I'm going to drop in a little excerpt of the video that I created a while back that shows you how to use a paper template to reclock that transfer case. Then I'll add a link to where you guys can go to that video and check it out. Roll the insert. You take your center punch right into the crosshairs right here. Push it, snap, pop, whatever. If you got the one that takes the hammer, you tap it with the hammer. This one you take, you spring loaded. It does its own little things. So you go right there, www.fixjeeps.com, and download this template. So probably the next video you'll see on this XJ will be me pull the engine transmission combination all at once. Some people separate the transmission from the engine before they bring it out. In this case, I pull the transfer case off the end of the transmission. That makes the overall package much shorter. So therefore, I can bring engine transmission out all at one time. So if you guys want to see that, and according to that, you do, coming soon. Everyone, appreciate you hanging out. Peace. Later, y'all.